I am marquetry artist Jane Burke. I live on a 10-acre farm in northern Idaho. Marquetry is the art of using wood veneers to create pictures. You can see this one I have already completed. That is just the veneer. After I've done this piece, I'll glue it onto a board and then sand and finish it. So to do that, I start off with a paper pattern and I put it over a background. In this case, I use 2 dyed veneers. And to transfer the pattern onto that piece, what I do is I cut directly through the paper, but I only score into the veneer below. I don't actually cut through yet. So just to give you an idea, the paper comes out. And the paper comes out. Once I have all the pieces cut, then I remove the paper and then I start removing the pieces of veneer that are essentially the background. Let's see, I'll start with her skirt. So I'm cutting directly through the veneer. And that one I scored hard, so it's already through. And so the piece I am removing is the scrap. Like that. Okay, so next to me I have a pile of veneers over here. And I then pick out of these veneers what I would like her skirt to be. So I would take this piece of veneer I may want to use, put it behind, and get the grain to run the way I want it. In this case, I don't think this, well, actually, that might work there. A little bit of texture in the skirt, but I actually think I may go with this one rather. Yes, I like that. Good contrast and lots of character in the grain. So that piece I've got there, and then I tape it in place with some masking tape, just to hold it while I'm working with it. And then I score. I'm not actually cutting out at this point. I'm literally just transferring the cut lines onto the veneer below. And if I am very careful, it will fit perfectly with no gaps. That's one thing about this technique, which I basically taught myself, is that there are no gaps between one piece and the next. So I have that transferred. I pull this off. And now this piece I cut out. Same way as I did before, just following the score, the cut lines. And all of that is scrap on the outside. Keep cutting. And I do everything with an X-Acto knife. People do use scroll saws for doing marquetry, but I have found that this to be a lot more accurate. Then I do a dry fit, make sure the piece does actually go in there. Looks like it does, as I would hope. And then using just a little bit of glue and on the edges, I'm going to glue basically only where the background is, so not in her legs or on her arm, just the areas where that skirt connects with the background, which is the gray and the green at this point. Put that in there, and then using some masking tape, I hold it in place just long enough until the glue dries, which is pretty fast. And then so I keep going. As I've got with this little girl over here, I'll just keep on adding in the different pieces until I have the finished piece. And then that I would take and glue it onto a piece of Baltic birch plywood. So this gets glued onto here, and then once it is attached, I let it dry, and then I have to sand it very carefully because the veneer is so thin I don't have much to work with. And then I finish them either with lacquer, or in this case I'm thinking of just going with a hand rubbed oil and wax finish. and then I frame them, and they're ready for sale. My mum is an artist and always encouraged me to try different media, to paint and sew and crochet and knit and all sorts of things. And so I have always been doing art of some sort. I have, since I started teaching at the John C. Campbell Folk School in North Carolina, I have been introduced to a lot of different things, like this is felting. Several years ago I started doing blacksmithing at the John C. Campbell Folk School in North Carolina. I made this piece last year to hold my jewelry. I also actually started off making gates for my garden, and really have much enjoyment of working with metal, but I have a woodworking shop, so I'm dedicating myself more to wood than metal. I also started doing pyrography, so I've been making little pieces with burnt wood, different designs. After I taught myself to do marquetry, I had to learn how to do woodworking. So I started making little boxes. This one I learned how to turn, making larger pieces, and all sorts of things. I am marquetry artist Jane Burke. I live on a 10-acre farm in this gorgeous northern Idaho. Rosie, really?